Welcome to the Entrepreneur Motivation Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Bello, and today I've got Andy Audate on the show. Andy, welcome.
Man, Chris, thank you so much for having me on your deal, man.
It's great to have you on here. And you're based in Las Vegas. Is that where you're at right now?
Las Vegas, man. I was in Los Angeles, but last year I moved to Las Vegas, man, and I'm loving the weather out here. I just love it out here.
Awesome.
Plus
So
the
you just
tax
moved
savings.
too. Yeah, the tax savings. I was like, man, and out in California, I hear it's brutal. You got to
Yeah,
save 80% of what you make just for taxes or whatever the number is.
yeah, it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous. An additional 13% just to stay in California. When I moved to Las Vegas, and my accountant asked me, he's like, "Hey, question for you. If you live in Texas, if you lived in Las Vegas, this is how much you pay. If you lived in California, this is how much more you got to pay." And I was like, "Oh, well,
I'm
just
moving.
so you know, I lived in Las Vegas, so it was really a good deal to move here."
Yeah, absolutely. Like instant, your bottom line increases automatically off that move. So that's amazing.
Yeah, 100%.
Cool. Well, I'm really excited to have you on the show. I read through your bio, but why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself real quick for the audience? Like, tell us about your story. Obviously, you just moved recently. What you're up to now, your goals for 2022. Feel free to take it away.
Yeah, well, I started off in business. Business is like my number one like habit, hustle, love. It came to business, and I think I'm attracted to the psychology of it.
Hmm.
And I got an opportunity to run my own landscaping business at a young age, at 10 years old. And then from 10 years old, 19 years old, I opened my first legitimate, enterprise, made 100 grand in my first 6 months, made my first million in 18 months, took that money, moved to the West Coast, and built a marketing agency where I teach people how to start and grow and scale their business now.
That's amazing, man. So you were at this at an early age. You got started early, huh?
Yeah, I think through challenges and pain, you start to figure out who you are and what you're made of. And my pain at someone at that age was my dad couldn't afford certain sneakers that I really wanted, so I went out and I hustled, started doing landscaping, got the money for the sneakers, and I realized that, hey, I'm in control if I put my mind to it.
Absolutely. That's super powerful. I think it's something that a lot of people, you're either moving towards pleasure or away from pain, right? I think Tony Robbins says that. So you felt the
Yeah,
pain of like, man, I want these sneakers. And I remember seeing that too when I was a kid. I had some rich friends, and every Christmas, they got better toys, they got more stuff than me. And I'd be like grateful for what I got, but I was secretly like, this is kind of a knockoff of what I really wanted, right? I got the cheap version, they got the nice version. And so I love how you took that pain and you just manifested it with your business. You manifested the reality that you wanted, and that's the dream life that you're living now.
yeah, 100%. I was just talking to my fiance yesterday, and I was just being grateful. I think gratitude is a huge element in understanding how much you've progressed. And so just by being grateful and taking that moment to reflect on how you've grown over the time, to share the life that we live now. I had a conversation with my fiance about that last night, talking about the life that we live now, how many years ago it was just a dream to me, and how I can accomplish such amazing things at such a young age.
Absolutely. So what's been one of the big challenges that you have faced? Maybe even moving. I'm sure your business is all virtual. You got clients across the nation, across the world. Have there been any challenges really with your recent move to Las Vegas?
Uh, not in the business aspect. Maybe on a personal level. Because this is a new area for me, right? A lot of my friends' relationships I built in Los Angeles was in LA,
Right.
and I moved here. I moved to Las Vegas abruptly. One day I was in my kitchen and I was talking to my fiance, then girlfriend at the time, and I said, "Hey, let's get out of here. Let's." This was in the middle of the pandemic. Downtown LA, I lived in one of those sky rises, and outside of my apartment complex was the George Floyd riots and so forth. And I realized, dude, my lease is about to end. I have the option to renew. They're begging me to renew at this point. Like they're giving me
You have the
free month
leverage, yeah.
this, free this, free that, because nobody wants to move into a spot when there's like a riot going on in front of it. Now the great thing is there's security at at the complex, so we weren't people weren't going in or anything. It was just outside. But no one wanted to move there. So I just see people moving out, no one moving in. But I told my fiance, hey, let's get out of here. Let's move. And she's like, where? I said, let's go to Las Vegas. I don't really know what's in Las Vegas for us, but I am spirit led. And I realized hey, that's gonna be the next move. Next thing you know, 2, 3, 4, 6 months later, I'm starting to see like a lot of the people that I connected with, they're moving out. They're out here. They're moving out here. And I'm like, okay, what's on the calendar for Los Angeles? And man, you can't see anything on the calendar. But here, I'm in the event space. I do a lot of events. I speak in events and so forth. In the event space, man, here it's booming like it's never had been before, because a bunch of people left California and moved to Vegas.
Absolutely. Yeah, I saw some of that your recent YouTube videos, speaking at masterminds and on stage and talking about your story, a book that you had written and everything, right? So you're hustling and bustling. I love that you moved, and I'm sure you've made some fast friends too. What's your book called? No More Average.
NoMoreAverageBook.com. NoMoreAverageBook.com.
Cool. I will link that up in the show notes. No More Average. I love that name too, because it's like so many of us settle for average and for mediocre and like, good, and good is the enemy of great, right? Once we stop to accept average as the norm, that's when amazing things happen, right? So when did you make that decision? When did you say, I'm done with average, I'm done being average?
I probably made that decision very clearly at 9 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, 9 years ago, where I decided that, hey, I want to be in control of my life. And what I talk about in this book, by the way, is recognizing that the people that you surround yourself either bring you up or bring you down. And I talk about the three different the different groups. You have the subpar, you have average, and then you have I completely forgot the last one. Completely forgot. You got subpar, you got average,
superstar,
and you got something like that. Eminent. Is it eminent? Yeah, I forgot. It's gonna come. It's gonna come into my mind. It's gonna come into my mind. But I talk about these three different levels. I have it here for those of you. It's preeminent. That's what it's called. Preeminent. At the highest level. And at the highest level, when you're at the individuals who are thriving in their life, and they're meaning that the vision that they have for themselves, they're living that. And then the average is like, man, I could be doing I could be living a certain way. My business could be a certain, and it's like a could be thing, but they don't live it. And then the subpar is like, man, I got no clue what's going on. I have no clue. Like I can attain anything.
Right.
So I talk about changing your social environment so that way you can progress. So I tell you, like I was 19 years old. I got around a man who was Black, came from where I come from, an impoverished area, but dude was essentially on his way to be a millionaire. And so when I'm around him, I worked for him at one point, but when I'm around him and I became a business partner with him and we opened up cell phone stores together, to see his growth, $100,000 looks so small. And I made my first $100,000 in 6 months. $100,000 looks so small. And then to see his continuous growth, $500,000 looks so small. So the big target was like $1 million, like to hit $1 million. Then when I hit $1 million, that's when I said, I'm going to go, surround myself with Richmond and Beverly Hills. And then it just took off from there.
Yeah. So that's a powerful example of how hanging out with those people makes it where you believe that it's possible, right? Because if you hang out with 4 broke people, you're going to be the 5th. You were hanging out with someone who was at that level that you wanted to be at. And so even $100,000, $500,000, I love how you said it felt so small. Whereas if you hung out with a lot of the people that you might have grown up with, you'd be like, $100,000, I'm good. I'm just going to stay here forever.
Yeah. One of my friends and mentor that I've, been friends with for years, man, he exited his company for $300 million. And so I call him from time to time to go over like what I'm doing in my business strategies. We talk about family and so forth. And, I've spoken at his events and so forth. But when I talk to him, man, and he exited a business at $300 million. And I'm like, man, there's nothing that I'm doing that's like right now that's like mind blowing for him. So instead we strategize and we talk about like cutting edge technology. So I share with him like, hey, this is what I found. This is the cutting edge technologies that I found. What are your thoughts on it? And he's like, that's a good idea. Like I should implement it in my business. So we go back and forth on that. But like, I mean, like, dude, like who you surround yourself with. When I'm talking to a guy who's exited for $300 million, I got another guy that I'm really cool with. his business does 47 million in revenue. One of my late mentors and great friends, Sam, he passed, but his business was valued at 52 million. And I'm driving his Rolls Royce, and it's expanding my mind as to what's possible in my early 20s. But back on where I come from, what I really experienced, man, was that I was the top of the food chain. I hired my friends. I had my friends' parents. I gave them jobs. I paid their salary and so forth. So I'm the top of this food chain in a short period of time. In order to really experience a new level of life, get around people. So you making your move, you even making your move, Chris, I'm sure that you're experiencing that. And you have an opportunity to reset like who you spend your time with in your new city, right?
That's absolutely right. I saw a meme or something on Instagram saying like an ultimate hack for growth is to leave your hometown, because a lot of people get held back by their friends, their families, maybe the relationships. And I mean, I love, like, again, nomoreaverage.com for your book, like that name, No More Average.
NoMoreAverageBook.com. NoMoreAverageBook.com.
NoMoreAverageBook.com. NoMoreAverageBook.com.
Yeah.
But for that name though, No More Average, like, it's not like a jab at my friends or family or anything, but like it just felt average. I hung out with average people. We did average stuff. We went to the bar every weekend. We went to the movies. I wanted above average, right? I wanted that next level.
Yeah.
And so I had to move. And like you said just now, I get to reset my friends. I get to be very picky. Like, who do I want to hang out with? Who do I want to spend time with? Who do I want to learn from? I don't know anyone out here, really. I've met people since we've moved, but if I don't really vibe with them, or if I'm like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be someone I want to spend a lot of time with, I just say, hey, nice to meet you. Let's follow each other on Instagram. And I don't really follow up. I'm not super intentional, right?
Yeah.
So how have you gone about it? I'm sure you meet people when you go speak on stage and at masterminds, but how have you gone about developing your network and meeting these high net worth individuals?
The opportunities in the show. And I think you got to show up two ways. Number one, physically be in the space where people have the opportunity to meet you. And number two, you got to show up powerfully, meaning that you're seen and that you're heard. So if you have an opportunity to get on a platform, get on that platform, whether it be a podcast, a stage, and so forth. So showing up powerfully is to be seen and to be heard. So whenever you're going out to a networking event or something of the like, figure out how you can get seen. So many times, like if I go to a conference, for example, like I meet a lot of people at conferences. So if I go to a conference, for example, I'm going to take advantage of asking a question. You know how when at a conference, the speaker says, does anyone here have any questions? And you're like, I'm raising my hand, like I got a question. And as the person's coming to me with the mic, I'm like, okay, I don't have a fucking question.
What's my question?
But let me figure out a question. And typically I'm gonna ask like a thought-provoking question. I'm gonna ask a thought-provoking question that can tap into the individuals that I want to connect to, their insecurities. So I want to tap into their insecurities, because if I can tap into their insecurities, I create emotion. And when I create emotion, there's a connection there. If I ask a question that is not thought-provoking, that's not tapping into the, creating emotion, then it's like one out of 100. You're a dime a dozen. Because I host events. I speak on stages throughout the nation, large stages. I host events here in Las Vegas, 200 people plus at my events. And I know that when someone asks me a question, and if it's not a question that touches me emotionally, I end up forgetting who the individual was, right?
Absolutely.
Like I just look at the question like a number. But when someone asks me a question that can draw some type of emotion out of me, that makes me think, I'm like, who the hell are you, first of all? And second of all, let me ask you a question, but let's talk after this. I want to see if you have more in-depth, conversation in you. So if you can do that at a conference, those people are going to gravitate towards you. And that's when you're chilling at the bar and that speaker walks up to you and they say, hey, nice question earlier. That really got me thinking. You stumped me there. And then they say, yeah, well, nice to meet you. I'm so-and-so. And then you have that conversation. And then next thing you know, like, hey, here's my one of my tools though. I'll tell you this is, I want to grab every person's phone number that I think is a value. So what I do is after I have a brief conversation with them, I tell them, hey, it was a pleasure talking to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to send you my V card. So that way, if there's any time that you want to connect with me, you can. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting it in their hand, that person's hand, that I'm saying, I want you, if you want to connect with me, because if it's the other way around, if you're talking to high level people, and I'm sure you experience this, Chris, if you're talking to high level people, a high level person realizes that if they give out their number, man, it's a downhill, man. I'm gonna get phone calls asking for mentorship, and I'm gonna get phone calls with this pitch and that pitch. But if I say, hey, I wanna send you my V card, my contact card, so that way if you want to ever contact me, that we can. What number do you want me to text it to? And I want you to pull out your phone right away, and as if you're ready to type it.
It's a done
It makes
deal.
the person subconsciously. What's that?
It's a done deal at that point. They're like, they just give it to you.
The person subconsciously is like, I don't want to say no. The dude already had his phone out. So you tape his number, send it your V card, but what do you have? His phone number now.
Boom. That's such a great tip. In the way I know you said show up and then show up powerfully. So whenever you do that, it's almost like that sales pitch. I do this too because I'm in real estate, right? It's like assuming the sale. You're already assuming, you're like, hey, this guy or gal is going to give me their phone number, and I'm going to pull out my phone as if I'm already expecting that to happen. And at that point, like you said, it's going to be very awkward if they're like, hey, I don't give out my number, or I'm not going to give it to you. At that point, it's a done deal. They're going to give it to you.
Especially if you just had a good conversation.
Yeah, especially if you had a great conversation. But also that other tip that you said, that's like a low-hanging fruit. If you just get the guts to go and ask a question, everyone's looking at you, and sometimes you get to plug your own business. I had a friend who did this, and they're like, what's your business called? He got to drop his website, and like 2,000 people heard it, right? That's like a free plug right there. And plus, everyone comes up to you to the bar afterwards to say, hey, I like that question. It kind of puts your face in front of everyone else, especially if it's a great question. So really good tips here. I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, whenever you get that opportunity, there was a conference or a summit called Trafficking Conversions. Like, I don't know how many people there, but it's thousands of people there. And I go to this event and I'm in front of, I don't know how many thousand people, but it's a large group. And exactly, I started with, hey, this is the results of my business, and my results are phenomenal. And then so the audience is like, oh. First of all, the second thing is they put me on like the screen and so forth. The second thing is I share like what my challenge is. But my challenge is something that is, like I said, thought-provoking and gets the person thinking, to where the owner of this huge organization, which I ended up partnering up with, but this huge organization is like, hey, I want to have a conversation with you. Let's meet at the booth at so-and-so. And he's telling me for this from the stage. I'm like, all right, bet. I go there at the booth at that time, and then there's like a huge crowd there, and they all knew who I was, because of the question that I asked and the way that I asked it. Plus, it stumped everyone because I started off with some phenomenal results. Hey, my business is doing X, or I have this many employees in my staff, and my challenge is, this. What are your thoughts about this? And when have you ever? And then so they respond and they're like, hey, I want to talk to you more. Let's talk at the booth. I can't answer a lot of questions here, but I do want to talk to you more. Let's meet at the booth. I go there, the booth, everyone is like, dude, you're the guy that asked that question. Yeah, how are you? Boom. Easy intro. I don't have to walk up to anybody, nervously or weird, because everyone already knew who I was.
It's almost like that expert positioning.
Yeah, I like that. I how you use that word. Yeah, expert positioning.
That's awesome, because then you show up and everyone's coming up to you. They know your name. They know your face. Versus like being shy, like, oh man, this person's a big shot. I don't know what I'm going to ask them. Again, it's coming from that place of power that you talked about earlier.
Yeah, man. If you can, because what I'm doing in that moment is I'm attracting the people who heard what I said and said, hey, I have a level of interest. Because if I'm in front of 1,000 people, like you said, or 2,000 people, and I could be talking to the person who's not a potential client, not a potential partner, and I'm trying to dig and probe and connect with them, but there's no value in there for neither him or I. What's the point? But if I can do it in front of a large group, and then a bunch of potential partners come up to me and they're like, hey, dude, I love what you said. This is what I do. Is there a way that we could work together? Yeah, let's set up a call on Monday. And next person, yeah, dude, I love what you said. Is there a way that we can connect? Yeah, let's get up a call on Wednesday. You leave a conference, now you got 13, 15 phone calls scheduled with people who are like, man, like, dude, that was powerful. Then let's connect. So to answer your question, man, that's how I would say, like, that's how you meet high value people at those, certain circumstances.
For sure. And you hear people say it's a numbers game, obviously. So you could do one-to-one, but how many one-to-one conversations do you have versus here it's an opportunity to do one to many. Like if you have a podcast or a platform or YouTube channel or you're asking a question and everyone can hear you, you get to attract people so you can bring the right person instead of like having 100 conversations, 1,000 people just heard you with the same amount of your time invested.
But you got to be really strategic when you get those shots. You know, when I said the opportunities in the show, you got to show up physically in the space. So I, you know, in that example I shared with you, got to be at the event, but to show up powerfully, to be seen and to be heard. When you speak, you better have a sense of the value, you know, that people are going to be attracted to you when something comes out of your mouth. You don't want to be that guy that's like, well, you know, and dude, come out with something so damn powerful that people are going to be like, dude, how in the world do you do that? How like hey, I get my like so here's what my challenge is. It's a strategy. So like if you're in real estate, you're saying, well, I sell my clients' homes within 15 days of putting it on the MLS. And my biggest challenge is that now I'm getting so many new deals. Like I kind of want to just off them to other agents. How would you go about vetting your, you know, new agents I want to work with you? You're asking the speaker, bro, you know how many agents are going to come to you and say, hey man, I'm from so-and-so, like, let's connect. I want to talk to you because they're trying to get those deals, but you're also, it's easier for you to just literally walk into the bathroom and an agent walk up to you and say, hey, how do you do that? Or a customer, you know, in your market that says, look, I don't want to wait for a 30, 60, a 90 day, 120 day closing. How could you get my house or my property sold in 15 days? So now you got realtors come to you and you got the customers come to you and they're both like, dude, Chris Bello, like, I'm fucking mesmerized, bro. Can I learn more about you? Then you hit them with the, hey man, let's exchange contact. And then, you know, now you got people's numbers and you're just swooping them in because of these few key strategic moves that you made.
Absolutely. And what you said there too, you can't go up there and mumble and bumble. You can't ask some stupid question that's like, come on, man. You don't even have a website. You're asking like a dumb question like, where do I get a domain name? You know, that will discredit you, right? It'll have the opposite effect where people are like, I'm not going to go waste my time talking to that person. They're like way below where I'm at right now. Versus coming from that place of credibility. Like if you speak at any events, you have that lent credibility. I've noticed that too. Whether it's a question or especially if you're up there in front of the room, people automatically assume like you wouldn't be up in front of the room unless you were an expert. And so like right there, I remember I spoke at a real estate networking event just teaching what I learned about wholesaling and investment stuff. Literally, I got 2 clients out of that and both of them bought 6 or 7 houses the next year from me. From that one event, like 1 hour conversation, right?
You gotta show up, man. You gotta keep showing up. So when people ask like what is that makes one successful versus the other, it's gonna be just that what you just said. Showing up.
Definitely. I just read this the other day too, and this kind of sounds like with what you're saying right here. It's like you can't just be at the right place at the right time. You have to be the right person at the right place at the right time, right? You gotta be ready when you have that opportunity to wow people. You can't, like we said just 2 seconds ago, you can't go up there and sound like a dumbass in front of 1,000 people or you're just going to shoot yourself in the foot.
Yeah. Like the video that you saw on Facebook that you said I spoke at a certain event. So like in that specific event that you're talking about, I was a panel speaker.
Yeah.
And those type of events, it's like, I don't know, 150 people in the audience maybe. And I only have so much time. I forget, I think it was like a 10-minute slot, right, between all of us. So we only have so much time. I flew from Vegas to Miami for that opportunity. Because what I just shared with you that I didn't ask a question. Instead, I shared a concept and a process that was more than enough. It was like bait. It's like, you know, I just got a new puppy, and when I put this treat in front of the nose and I move my hand away, man, it starts moving towards wherever I lead it. So I get on a platform and I put bait. The first thing you saw me do, if you were there, was I gave one person a book, but I had each person in the audience text my phone number. I own a software called Progredo. Now in Progredo, you can automate text messages however you please and create a whole automated campaign that starts off as a text message, gets the person's name, get the person's email, get the person's last name, and any other key identifiers automatically. and then books the appointment for you automatically. And it feels like it's talking to a human, but it's actually artificial intelligence and a robot. So, but I got to find a way to feed the software, the Progredo. So I'm on the stage and I say, hey, who here wants my book? So this book breaks down, how to achieve your goals and my story and so forth. Who here wants my book? I got a couple, but I'm gonna give one away right now. And then everyone's like, I want it. I said, okay, guys, text this number, and text this word to this number. So a bunch of people just start texting the word to this number, bunch of people. And then I look at my phone, my software has an app, so you can get my app in the app store. And I look at the app and I say, okay, these are who texted me. I gave one book away, but I just got a whole bunch of leads, man. Whole bunch of leads from that one speaking engagement. And then they're automatically getting booked and pre-qualified through my software, Progredo. So when you're on those platforms, I knew, like, when I was on that platform, for example, in that panel, man, I was the light on that stage in that moment. And I'm not saying that because it's Andy. You can tell who dominated that stage. And it's because of what I'm sharing with you. You share something thought-provoking. You create emotion. You get people connected. And then you have a process to convert the audience into leads, and then turn that leads into sales. Man, you have a system now that's actually generating you income. The more you show up, the more you make money. The more you show up, the more you make money.
That's amazing, man. Thank you for sharing. And we're doing that here too, right? You're on my podcast. I'm going to drop links in the show notes, so when people listen to this, they get a bunch of value. They're like, man, this Andy guy knows what he's talking about. If they don't already follow you, they're going to head over to the notes and they're going to see, how can they follow you? How can they get a copy of your book? How can they sign up for coaching or anything else that you offer, right? Maybe the next mastermind that you're speaking at, they're going to book a flight to go out to Miami to go listen to you talk, right? That's the power. And so you're showing up every single day, speaking on stages, speaking on podcasts, but the system, that's what's important. A lot of people do this and I guess they have a call to action to, like, download a freebie or get on their email list. But I love how you're using your own software to build your list, to start those conversations, to bring in potential leads and customers. So really powerful stuff you're sharing here.
The system is what makes the money. If you don't have a system, I know too many people that have 100,000 followers but don't have $100,000. Right.
Right.
Got 100,000 followers struggling to make ends meet. I just watched this video of this woman. She has 4.6 million followers, and she's like sharing one of those vulnerable videos where she's driving in her mom's car and saying that she doesn't have her own car, and she got kicked out of her place because she couldn't afford it. And she has 4.6 million followers. So that means, like, there's a bunch of people liking her content, a bunch of people in the direct messages, but she doesn't have a system to generate income. If you can do both, create awareness and have a system to convert audience, that awareness into customers. And then the last portion is going to be delegation. If you can, A, create awareness in your business, B, have a system to convert in any industry. That's what my software does. In any industry, have a system to convert that awareness into a lead and a ready to buy customer. And then C, delegate the sales process to someone else. You, my friend, are in business and have a business. You go from being a solopreneur needing to do all the work to being a business owner having a system do all the work for you. It's the difference between Joe's Burger Shop and I'm Joe in the actual burger shop flipping the burgers versus my name is Tom and I own 3 McDonald's.
Right. That's a big difference too, because then you go from doing the right things to owning the right things. I recently heard that on a podcast. It was like saying, poor people do the wrong things, rich people do the right things. Wealthy people own the right things. And so when you said go from flipping the burger, don't be Joe flipping the burger, doing everything inside the one shop, you get to actually scale up, hire more salespeople. And that's where all you do, you're focusing on the highest level stuff, right? You're going around speaking at events, talking to thousands of people, jumping on podcasts. All those little conversations are happening. Your system is getting all the automations in there. And with the delegation, your salespeople are on the phone, helping clients, closing deals, locking up contracts type of stuff. So this is really great stuff for anyone listening, because there's a lot of solopreneurs in my audience and they're doing everything right now. So systems, you have to have the right systems to really get to that next level. Yeah,
100%. I wrote a book on this. It's called 7 Keys to Building a $1 Million Brand. So cool. For those people that want to go get it, AndyAudate.com/7 keys. The 7 is a digit. AndyAudate.com/7 keys, 7 the digit. And go grab the ebook, and I break that down. It's free. You can go grab it, andyaudate.com/the digit 7 keys, and grab that ebook. And as I break down how to build $1 million brand, because it's not about just popularity, it's about having a process to monetize.
Absolutely. Did you do this all manually for some time before you really learned about the systems? Like, or did it come to you pretty quickly? Like, hey, I need to automate this and build a team like pretty fast.
So the first business I had was I owned cell phone stores. So I talk about that in the book, nomoreaveragebook.com. I talk about this in the book, No More Average. And I owned cell phone stores. My first month and some change in the cell phone store, in the cell phone game, man, I wasn't hitting the goals that I wanted to hit. So the first thing I did was a mentor. And that mentor supported me and taking my business to 100 grand. Did my first 100 grand, worked with him still, partnered up, expanded multiple locations, made my first $1 million out of that business. Then I retired. Like I semi-retired for like 18 months. Right? Didn't have to work. I was just speaking and just giving stuff away, giving value. But I wasn't generating income from the speaking business. So when I got into the speaking and so forth, the speaking world, and where I'm speaking, I'm marketing, I'm on social media, something didn't sit right with me when I felt like I had to do everything on my own, right? Because my basis of business came from a scaled business previously. So I was used to just being a shot caller versus needing to do any of the work. I wasn't selling phones. I owned thousands of phones, but I didn't have to sell many of them, right? It was sold by a team. I had a staff of 14 working for me. And so in this new industry that I was in, something didn't sit right with me. So I did it for like 30 days or so, where I did my own event by myself, and I was the one hustling, selling tickets by myself. The worst fucking experience that I can probably think of, right? Because I'm trying to get people who don't know me. By the way, I was 21. I was 21 and semi-retired. So I'm 21 at the time, going to Keller Williams. Like I have a big relationship with Keller Williams in Los Angeles, as well as Century 21 and Remax, where I was selling those agents tickets to come to my events, and I would bring in top tier speakers to present in front of them. So I was like the connector, hosting these seminars, and I did it my own self, and it was gruesome. I realized, dude, I need help. So I went the virtual route. I got on the phone and I was talking to people at T-Mobile, who was my cell phone carrier. And I talked to the guy, and the guy's like, I hear a slight accent. And I asked the guy, where are you from? He says, I'm from Africa. And I said, you're from Africa, but I'm calling T-Mobile. Like, how are you from Africa? And he's telling me, oh, like they hire, they outsource all their like customer service to overseas. And I said, what? And that's when I opened my eyes. So I called Chase Bank, not directly right after, maybe a couple of days. I'm talking on the phone with Chase Bank. I asked the person, I said, where are you from? Oh, our headquarters is located in so-and-so. No, I said, where are you from? Oh, I'm based in the Philippines. Chase Bank, JP Morgan Chase, based in the Philippines. And that's when I opened my eyes. Go virtual. If they're spending millions, if not billions of dollars on their research and development, I'm going to follow them. So I went virtual, and I built a virtual team, got up to a group of 50 team members that run my company virtually. So I started off with virtual. Then I realized that it's harder to scale when you have human capital, when you're depending on human capital. There's complete challenges, right? People get pregnant, people get sick. And when you're dealing with a team of 3 or a team of 5 or a team of 10, it's manageable. Once you pass that 30 team member mark, someone is sick every other day. Every quarter, someone's pregnant. So you have different circumstances that you have to kind of combat as you're growing and scaling a business that's dependent on human capital. So what I realized is that the real freedom that I'm looking for in my business, that I can completely be not only hands off, but have it be a system that runs autonomously, is to create automation. And that's where my system Progretta comes from.
I love that. Thank you for sharing the backstory on that, because that's so true. As you get more people, you got to deal with vacations, pregnancies, sicknesses, injuries, and even just people quitting, right? Like, hey, I'm not coming tomorrow. I'm done. Right? They don't even put in the 2-week notice. They're just like, it's not for me. That happened to me. I tried to bring on an executive assistant. It was going pretty well for like 3 weeks. And then I guess she wasn't feeling it, and she's like, hey, this isn't for me. And I'm like, okay, cool. Well, that sucks, because now I don't have anyone other than my virtual people. But like you said, people, they're people. We got things going on. People are busy. They move, right? Like all of a sudden, you didn't stay at your apartment, so they're trying to lease the space that you left behind in California. that's like a
Yeah.
physical thing. If they had an automated process for this, it would not be as big of an issue, most likely. I mean, other than all the politics and the craziness in the world today, but virtual like automation is the key. That's the message that I'm getting. And I do a lot of automation too. And sometimes, there's got to be that human component every now and then. Like you can't necessarily speak on stage if you're not there, at least not yet. Maybe in the future you could speak as a hologram in the metaverse or something. But I love those messages,
Yeah.
right? Automation, and then people, obviously you could pour into your people, but automation, that shows up. It doesn't get sick, right? Maybe it has a glitch every now and then, but you can always update it.
Yeah, and I mean, and the people. So the third element. So the first component is to create awareness. The second is to have the automation. And the third component is going to be that delegation, where you're hiring to virtual team members, so that way your business is ran virtually. So that way you can respond to any economic shock, any climate shock, any worldwide shock. You can respond if your is their homes. So the office can be affected like we saw with COVID. The last place that people are going to be affected is their homes. So if your business is ran virtual, you have so many different layers of protection, right? Because with COVID-19, we saw that offices, you couldn't work in an office. We saw that, right? The second element is that when you're in a territory, if you're looking to build a global enterprise, and I pray for the people that what happened in Kentucky. But if you look at Kentucky, for example, what happened in Kentucky, there was a tornado of some sort. So natural disaster. If your entire business was built in this one area and you had a bunch of team members working in this one area, and then a tornado passes by, your income is shot. The time that you need the money the most, you can't even make money because your entire staff is based in this one territory. So that means that, hey, if something happens, I have team members in Latin America, Philippines, Europe, and United States. So that means something happens in Europe, something happens in the Philippines, then I have other team members to pick up the workload as long as we have internet.
Absolutely. You're mitigating your risk in a way, and that way you don't have to have any downtime. Your team can pick up the slack in one area in case someone needs to regroup in another location, right? For I guess, faculty getting sick, or an act of God, I guess is what they call that, with like a tornado or a hurricane or whatever. And me being from Houston, right? Hurricane Harvey was another one like that, where businesses are like, dang, well, we just built this beautiful campus in the woodlands. The whole thing flooded, so everyone has to work from home. And, people weren't really used to it. This was before COVID and all of that. So I definitely have seen what you're talking about. But I know we're pretty much at the end of our time today. I'm sure you've got other appointments lined up, Andy. This has been an awesome conversation. I know, talking about awareness, automation, and delegation. I wrote those things down. What's one key takeaway that you'd recommend someone listening today can go out there and implement? Like, if they just did one thing today, what would that be?
That one thing is going to be get your business organized. Get your business organized from all the contacts, because look, a couple of weeks ago, man, I lost my Instagram account. I had no Instagram account. Facebook took away my Instagram account. Just woke up one day, go to Instagram, and it's not there anymore. And Facebook, if anyone pays attention, you start seeing people's accounts getting chopped if you're not essentially helping them with their plan, their process, and their plan. So really, if you're not a user, right? If you're not a user of the platform, and when I say user, I'm talking about a consumer, right? I'm a producer. I produce content for my own goals, my own business processes, and my objective is really to take people off of the platform. I don't want people on my Instagram account. I want people's name, phone number, and email in my software, in Progretta, because I can convert that into a follower. Facebook and Instagram, they can throttle me and not put me in front of a certain group of people. They can throttle me at any moment, right? I have 400 something thousand followers, and at any moment they can say, hey, we're only going to put you in front of X amount of people, right? We're going to put you in front of X amount of people. So I've been preaching that for so long. I've been sharing, get leads, get data, put it into your CRM, put it into the Progretta software, right? The Progreda, put it into the Progretta software. I've been preaching that for so long. Next thing you know, I get clipped. For 3 months, I have no Instagram. They keep trying to verify me, verify my name, and so forth. So what I would share with you is get organized in your business. Put your leads inside the Progretta software, Progreda. Go if you don't have Progretta, go to Progreda, Progretta.com. Go to Progretta.com.
Awesome. Really good stuff, Andy. I really appreciate your time today, and get organized. I mean, that's something we all need to do. Every business owner listening to this right now, there's some part of your business that's probably pretty unorganized, maybe a stack of papers that you've been burying somewhere in a desk somewhere, right? Or one of the drawers of the desk. So yeah, where would you like people to go to connect with you? Podcasts? Is it your main website? Is that a great spot to send them?
The best spot is get into the circle. Go to Progreda, PROGREDA.com. Progreda.com. Learn about the software. Learn about how it makes your job as a business owner much easier, and get into our world, get into our ecosystem, so that way we can support you with your growth.
Awesome. Sounds good. Well, thank you once again, Andy. Really appreciate our time together, and I look forward to keeping in touch.
Chris, thank you for having me on, man.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for being a listener to the show and for checking out my message. If you've been here for a while, I'm especially grateful for you. But if you're new here, thank you once again for being a listener. Just wanted to let you know, I help people buy, sell, or rent real estate across the nation in the US. I probably could even help you across the world, but it just gets a little more difficult with time zones and setting up times to chat. If you have any questions at all, shoot me a DM on Instagram. My handle is Chris Bello _, or you can also go to my website, chrisbello.com/real estate. Again, that is chrisbello.com/real estate. Happy to help any way that I can. And thank you once again for being a listener.